All right, thank you guys. Before we go ahead and start, just want to give you a heads up that I literally have like the world's oldest iPad that I record these videos on. Pretty archaic, and for some reason over the past couple of days, I've been running out of like memory really quick. Like after a couple minutes of recording a video, the memory runs out and the video cuts off. So for some reason, this video cuts off. You know, don't be alarmed. We'll make up for it in smaller videos. But anyway, just wanted to give you a heads up about that, just in case anything weird happens, like these mail-in ballots. But anyway, you come to see me to get away from politics, and we're going to stick to that. But anyway, the Michigan Wolverines take on Indiana, and that's going to be a 12 p.m. Eastern start time in the Hoosier State. Michigan's the 3-point favorite on the road. Total's 54 and a hook. And of course, guys, don't forget to check me out on patreon.com/rockpage, where we have premium sports picks on that website, starting out at just $1.99. We also have well over 625 members signed up and active on that page. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/rockpage. Now, when it comes to this Michigan-Indiana contest, the Hoosiers are plus $1.30 for some money line cash. Now, the Hoosiers are 2-0 on the season, 1-0 at home. Solid victories over the likes of Penn State in a very competitive Rutgers program this year. But despite their recent success, they've kind of put somewhat of a target on their back as, powerhouse schools such as Michigan can ill afford to overlook them. They can ill afford to take them lightly. So Michigan's not going to overlook these guys. They're going to get the Wolverines' best effort in this one. And once again, as impressive as Indiana's 2 victories this season were, I'm not so sure Indiana backers are going to get the stellar quarterback play that they're looking for. Quarterback Michael Penix has completed just 36 of 62 for 408 yards. He's completing just 58% of his passes and averages only 204 yards a game through the air. Now, this Indiana rushing attack is hardly an attack at all. They've averaged just 75 yards a game on the ground. Now, they're taking on a Michigan team who, despite getting upset last week in a rivalry game, those things happen. Doesn't matter what the point spread is, what the record is. Those, rivalry games are toss-ups. But anyway, Michigan still has scored 73 total points in their past 2 games. Quarterback Joe Milton's thrown for 525 yards already, and he has gained 111 yards on the ground. Kind of a dual threat guy. Joe's responsible for 2 touchdowns. And this big Wolverine O-line's given up only 2 sacks thus far, and they've opened up huge holes for this rushing attack. They've gained 408 yards on the ground already, which is good for 204 rush yards a game on average. Now, the Wolverines have also scored 8 times on the ground through 2 ball games. So really the strength of this team thus far has been the rushing attack. Now, Michigan's won their last 9 straight at Indiana. And when it comes to the total in this one, Michigan saw their lone road game on the season fly over the posted number. Meanwhile, the Hoosiers are currently 2-0 to the over for the season themselves. Give me the Michigan Wolverines -3 in the over 54.5 in that ball game. And before we go ahead and move on, just want to take another quick timeout and welcome you to the video. Got some lines of personal leans out for college football week 10, and of course, this is the Big Ten edition, so this is like week 2 or 3, depending which school you're watching. But anyway, just got to quickly remind you, once again, before we dive into some more free content here, don't forget to check me out on patreon.com/BrockPage. We do daily premium sports picks on that website, beginning at just $1.99. Here we cap every game. There on Patreon, you guys actually find out where my money's at. And we currently have over 625 members signed up and active on that site. And if you want to join those folks and get in on the action, link for that site is in the description section below. And once again, that's patreon.com/BrockPage. And moving on, we're going to take a look at Michigan State, Iowa. And that's going to be a 12 p.m. Eastern start time. Now, the Iowa Hawkeyes are the 7-point favorite at home. Total's 46. Sparty's plus 210 for an upset win at Kinnick Stadium. And speaking of let's try that again. Speaking of upsets, Michigan State's coming fresh off a 3-point victory over highly touted Michigan this past week. The Spartans have actually scored 54 points in their last couple of contests. Quarterback Rocky Lombardi's been very electric, very good. He's thrown for 642 yards and 6 touchdowns through just 2 games. He's been electric, averaging 321 yards a game through the air. Now, wide receiver Ricky White is averaging over 100 yards a game receiving as well. He also has 9 catches for 201 yards and a touchdown. White's also averaging nearly 23 yards of reception, kind of a big play guy here for the Spartans. Now, wideouts Naylor and Reed also have a combined 298 yards receiving between the two of them as well. Michigan State's 1-0 straight up in their lone road game. 1-0 against the spread in that contest. And, of course, that was the big upset over in-state rival Michigan. Now, they are taking on a struggling Iowa team who lost 2 straight to open up the 2020 campaign. They lost to Purdue and Northwestern, scoring just 20 points a game respectively in each of those 2 contests. Now, quarterback Spencer Petras is completing just 53% of his passes, and he's thrown 3 interceptions compared to just 1 touchdown through 2 games. Simply put, Petras just hasn't been good enough to get the job done for the Hawkeyes, especially more specifically just in the early going here of this 2020 season. Now, total-wise, when it comes to the number in this one, both of Michigan State's 2 contests on the year flew over the total 46 points. Once again, Rocky Lombardi's been outstanding passing the football. So with all that said and done, I'm going to lean toward the underdog Michigan State Spartans, +7, keeping it close on the road, and the over 46 in that contest. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Nebraska Northwestern, 12 p.m. Eastern start time at Ryan Field. The Wildcats are the 3-point favorite at home. Total's 55 flat. Now, the Cornhuskers are plus $1.35 for an upset win. Nebraska's 0-1 straight up on the year. Suffered through a tough blowout loss to Ohio State in the opener. No real surprise there. So keeping that in mind, kind of tough, really tough to kind of gauge where this Husker program is at right now, because everyone in the Big Ten gets crushed by Ohio State other than Michigan and sometimes Penn State. So kind of a tough measuring stick opening up with Ohio State in your opener. But anyway, what we do know is that Northwestern has, they have themselves some players this year. These guys are 2-0 in the season. Impressive victories over Iowa and Maryland. This Wildcat defense has given up just 23 total points on the year. They forced 7 turnovers in 2 games, and that's mostly thanks to 6 interceptions. Just can't throw on these guys. Defensive back Brandon Joseph has a pair of interceptions from the secondary, 11 total tackles as well. And speaking of tackles, linebacker Chris Bergen currently leads the club with 16 of them. When it comes to the total on this one, I think this Northwestern defense is going to really give the Cornhuskers fits. They, once again, are giving up just 11.5 points a game through 2 contests. Both of Northwestern's games on the season stayed under the number as well. So with all that said and done, give me the Northwestern Wildcats -3, continuing to roll on, and the under 55 in that ball game. All right, next matchup, it is going to be Maryland, Penn State, 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time in Happy Valley. Not so Happy Valley this year, but regardless, the Nittany Lions are the huge 25-point favorite, total 63. Now, Penn State starting off 0-2 for the first time in years. They lost in an overtime thriller to Indiana in the opener, and they got waxed by Ohio State this past week. It was a 13-point contest, but Ohio State had it pretty much handled throughout the entire contest, for the exception of a couple Jahan Dotson circus catches. But anyway, the Nittany Lion D has given up 74 points through 2 games, and they're averaging, they're giving up 37 points a game on average. They've also got just 2 takeaways on the season as well, so really not overly opportunistic defensively. Meanwhile, on the offensive line, quarterback Sean Clifford's been sacked 6 times, and he's thrown 3 interceptions. They're also struggling in the kicking game. They've gone just 2 for 5 on field goals, crucial field goals as well. And for those who've been backing Penn State over the past year or so, they've really come short with regard to the betting markets. They failed to cover the number in their last 6 straight at Beaver Stadium. So certainly not a good trend there for Nittany Lion backers. The Lions have also failed to cover the point spread in 5 out of their last 6 conference games in the Big Ten. Now they are taking on a Maryland program who isn't as good as them position-wise, position for position, best on best, but Maryland had a solid bounce-back win over Minnesota this past week. They actually hung up 45 points on the Golden Gopher defense, and they actually came from 17 points behind to get the job done in that one. Quarterback Talia Tungavailoa is completing 67% of his passes, and he's thrown for 3 touchdowns. Now, wideout Dante Demas has 11 catches for 142 yards and a touchdown, and wideout Jashawn Jones has also caught 8 passes for $140 and a score. Jones is averaging almost 19 yards of reception. And, of course, can't forget about this powerful Terrapin run game. 345 total yards on the ground through 2 contests. 173 yards a game on average. And most of that is thanks to this bruiser running back, Jake Funk, who probably won't outrun your fastest corner, but will certainly run through him. Jake's touched the ball 27 times for 256 in a touchdown. Jake's almost averaging 10 yards a carry, while also rushing for $128 a game on average on the ground. Now, Tungavailoa has also rushed it in twice for the Terps. And when it comes to the total in this one, as much as I've sung the Terrapins' praises, they haven't been all that sound on defense. They have given up 87 points through just 2 games. And, of course, their most recent contest this past week with Minnesota flew nearly 30 points above the total. Meanwhile, the Nittany Lions on the other side, they saw their 2 games on the season fly over the number. And once again, their D is allowing 37 points a game. So all that in mind, the Nittany Lions should get the W in this one. But I'm just not sure we're going to see one of those old-fashioned blowouts over Maryland. Probably going to end up being a little bit closer. Kind of going to be a different ending than what we've been used to. Penn State's going to win this one outright. But when it comes to the number, give me the Maryland Terrapins plus 25 and the over 63 in that contest. All right, next matchup. It is going to be Minnesota squaring off with Illinois, 3:30 p.m. Eastern start time. Now, the Gophers are the 7-point favorite on the road, total 61 and a hook. Illinois plus 215 on the money line. Now, the Illini covered against Purdue this past week in a very solid effort. They were catching 10 and lost by just a touchdown, and that lone cover on the season was also played on their home field. Now, Illinois has had great success on the ground through 2 contests, 154 yards a game on the ground they're averaging already. Their 2 leading rushers are both averaging over 4.7 yards a carry. And, after establishing a sound run game, if they can in this one, if the Illini want to throw it deep, wide receiver Brian Hightower is literally averaging 25 yards of reception along with a touchdown. So kind of a home run hitter there in Hightower. Now they're taking on a Minnesota team who's looked horrible in 2020, 0-2 to start the season, 94 total points they've given up in those contests. And sadly enough, one of those games was against Maryland. Maryland, not that great of a program. And so that's not good. But anyway, they gave up 45 to a bad Maryland team, 49 to Michigan in the opener. They're officially allowing 47 points a game through 2 contests. And after a really nice 2019 campaign, quarterback Tanner Morgan has looked lackluster to say the least. He's completing just 60% of his passes, and he's averaging just $193 a game through the air. Now, Morgan's only thrown 2 touchdowns, and he's been sacked 6 times. And as good as wide receiver Rashad Bateman's looked in certain spots, he's yet to catch a touchdown pass going into their 3rd game as well. Now, the Gophers have failed to cover the number in 5 out of their last 6, dating back to last season. And when it comes to the number in this one, now total-wise, Minnesota's gone 2-0 to the over thus far, 1-0 to the over when traveling. Meanwhile, Illinois' season opener with Wisconsin got over the line themselves. So with all that said and done, I'm going to lean toward yet another underdog getting the job done against the number. Give me the underdog Illinois Fighting Illini +7 and the over 61.5 in that ball game. And with that, we're going to dive into our next and final matchup for the show. It is going to be Rutgers, Ohio State, and that's going to be a 7:30 p.m. Eastern start time. The Buckeyes are laying 38 at home, total 64.5. Ohio State's 2-0 on the season, no real surprise there. They ran through Penn State and Nebraska in their opening two contests. They actually scored 90 total points in the process. Quarterback Justin Fields is completing a silly 87% of his passes. So once again, that's a remarkable number. Once again, Justin Fields is completing a silly 87% of his passes. And he's thrown for 6 touchdowns. He's also throwing for 297 a game. Now, wideout Garrett Wilson has 18 catches for 240 and a touchdown. And wide receiver Chris Olave has caught 13 balls for 224 and 2 scores himself. Both receivers averaging over 112 yards a game already. And when it comes to the run game in this one, Ohio State's already racked up 423 yards on the ground. Master Tiggs touched it 35 times for $151 and 3 scores. The Buckeye offense is gaining 212 yards a game on the ground. And defensively, when it comes to this Ohio State defense, they played pretty solid there as well. 21 points a game they're giving up, which is more than enough to keep that high-powered offense afloat. Defensive tackle Tommy Tuaie, has 3 sacks already, while the Buckeye defense already has a total of 8 sacks. Ohio State's also forced 3 turnovers, as linebacker Pete Werner has 13 total tackles. They're taking on a Rutgers team who gave up 37 points to Indiana last week. That was a 16-point loss against the Hoosiers, where they were held to just 7 first-half points. Now, quarterback Noah Vedrill's completing just 61% of his passes, and he's averaging just 149 passing yards a game. He's also been sacked 6 times and threw 4 interceptions. Now, this Rutgers defense has also allowed 64 total points against the likes of Indiana and Michigan State. The Scarlet Knights have dropped 12 out of their last 13 on the road, along with 19 out of their last 20 conference games. Now, total-wise, Rutgers is 2-0 to the over for the season, 1-0 to the over on the road. Meanwhile, Ohio State's most recent contest against Penn State got over the number, depending on where you're shopping at. So with all that said and done, kind of a chalky lean here. Go ahead and give me the Ohio State Buckeyes -38 and the over 64.5 in that contest. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. Don't forget to check me out on Patreon. If you guys decide to get a package here today, just keep in mind we'll bill you the day you sign up and then the first of every month following that. But most importantly, guys, got to thank you for joining me right here on YouTube. Really hope you enjoyed all this great free content, all this great free information. And with that said, happy Wednesday to you, happy hump day to you, and I look forward to seeing you later on today on my website at patreon.com/BrockPage.